Do you know how miserable a family without a son used to be in the countryside? The village council has no place for my father to speak. Mom cannot serve New Year's Eve dinner. Even if our brothers split up, we can only be assigned to adobe houses that are in disrepair and leaking rain everywhere. Until I was 5 years old, my mother got pregnant again. When my mother gave birth to me, she shed a lot of blood and almost survived. In the following years, she did not conceive again. The midwife in the village said that she mostly injured her body and won't have any more children in the future. I was 4 years old when I separated from Uncle. At that time, my father was very angry. I spent most of my money and effort building a new house. Why can't I only get an adobe house? Auntie lifted her clothes to nurse her cousin. You don't have a son. Why do you want such a big house? You see, all 3 of my family are boys. In the future, we need a place to live for our daughter-in-law. Grandma agreed. Girl, the movie will get married sooner or later, and you will have to rely on your nephew for retirement in the future. Dad's energy and energy were instantly broken. It sounds ridiculous now, doesn't it? The idea that my nephew is from my own family and my daughter is from another family was very common at that time. Dad came out of the hall and sat with his head down on a large stone in the yard. The moonlight was bright, casting a thick shadow on his side. I walked over and wrapped my arm around his neck from behind. Dad, I will provide retirement for you and Mom in the future. He patted the back of my hand and his voice choked. Okay, Sia is really good. We finally moved to the adobe house. All the old cattle and plowing tools at home were given to Uncle. We were only assigned a fast disintegrating rice thresher. On the night of moving, my mother tried many times under the stove, but the fire couldn't start. This house was built by Grandpa Tai, using yellow mud bricks and thatched roof. If there is no one living in the house for a long time, the moisture in the room will not dissipate at all for a while. A box of matches ran out, and my mother suddenly covered her face and kept shrugging her shoulders. Dad poured the water he picked into the cracked tank and walked silently to her side. My mother hugged his waist and burst into tears. That night, I slept on the bed in the north wing, and the cold wind poked me through the cracks in all directions. I curled up in the hard quilt and prayed secretly. Let my mother give birth to a younger brother. In this way, she and her father should not be so sad anymore. Perhaps my prayer was heard by heaven, and my mother became pregnant soon. Everyone in the village said that if my mother has a sharp stomach and loves to eat sour food, she must be a son. Dad said that both his son and daughter are the same, but at dinner, he told his mother, Zhang Datu invited me to work together in Guangdong next year, saying there are many opportunities there. Work for a few years to save some money and build a building in our house. Otherwise we won't be able to find a daughter-in-law in the future. Grandma brought me 2 laying hens and reminded me, Sia, eggs are for my mother's little brother to eat. You can't be greedy. You know, the woman in the village asked me, Sia, do you want a younger brother or a younger sister? I don't hesitate. Brother, the women laughed and said, with your younger brother, your parents won't love you anymore. I'm in a hurry. Not really. I'll always be my parents' treasure. The women laughed even louder, completely unaware that those words would make a 4 or 5-year-old child so frightened. At that time, family planning had already been implemented, but the policy stipulates that if you have a rural household registration and your first child is a girl, you can have another child. As soon as the day arrived, my mother started. She had been in pain for a whole day without giving birth, and the next day before dawn, her grandmother went to the butcher in the village to cut a large piece of fat pork and even picked up a pig stick bone. Wait for her to bring back the meat. Mom gave birth. It's a younger sister. Grandma stood in the yard carrying the bag of meat, and the midwife greeted her. Go in and see your granddaughter. She's white and fat. Don't look anymore. A few kids from the boss are still waiting for me to cook breakfast. She left the stick bone and took away all the meat. At that time, life was difficult and there was no oil or water. Every household loved to eat fat, but bones were sold cheap. I went inside to see my sister. She was wrinkled and her face was red. like a little old man. Not what the midwife said was white and chubby. My mother lay weakly on the bed, staring at the thatched roof, tears streaming from the corners of her eyes. Dad was smoking and said, "Don't cry. You've already given birth." The mother was giving birth just in time for the autumn harvest. My grandparents are busy at my uncle's house, and my father and I are also busy harvesting rice. Mom lay in bed for 3 days and then went down to cook for us. Therefore, I fell into trouble and felt pain all over my body when it rained. That year during the Chinese New Year, 2 aunts in the city also came back to have New Year's Eve dinner. The aunt accompanied her aunts to play mahjong, while the younger sister was starving and crying. Mom is preparing New Year's Eve dinner with Grandma in the smoky and fiery kitchen. After a busy afternoon, I finally got it done. Mom went to nurse her sister when she had time, but after feeding, she found that there was no place for her on the table. Dad and my second cousin got off the table, but my grandmother stopped them and said, "Why bother so much? Let's eat in the kitchen. It's too bullying." I'm dragging my parents to go home. My mother hugged my crying sister while patting my head. What do children know? Eating. That night when I left my uncle's house, my aunt smiled and stabbed my mother's heart. "Sister, you are actually much easier than me. You don't even know how tired it is to have 3 sons." That night, there was no moonlight. On Chinese New Year's Eve, every household lights up. A dark yellow light fell on the muddy roads in the countryside. I asked my parents softly why they had to endure. Dad's tone is irritable. "What do you know as a child?" My mother's face was soaked in the shadow. "Who said I can't give birth to a son?" They don't believe it. I will provide them with retirement. Dad won't go to Guangdong to work anymore, because there is no son. There is no need to build a new house at home. Let's just muddle along. It is said that the countryside is simple, but if these people use knives, they will be more ruthless than anyone else. Someday, my father gained a nickname, Zhang Luozi. A mule is a hybrid breed of horse and donkey. It is impossible to breed offspring. The village genealogy needs to be repaired with money, and someone suggested with a smile, "Zhang Luozi's family doesn't need it anymore. They don't have a son, so it's too bullying to ask him to pay for it." Dad remained silent, while Mom only dared to choke and complain at home. Outside, she piled up a smiling face and dared not refute. "I can't change them. I can only make myself stronger." They called their father Zhang Mule, and I called their whole family mules. My cousin bullied my sister and me. I bit with my teeth and kicked with my feet. Even if you have a blue nose and swollen face, you should tear a piece of meat from them. Grandma grabbed the newly hatched chicks from my house and said they were raising them for us. "Keep it. It belongs to the uncle's family." I chased after him all the way and snatched him back. Auntie tied the scalper to my house and ate a whole piece of freshly grown water spinach clean. She pretended that it was not intentional. I opened the door of her vegetable garden and put all the chickens inside, pecked out all her vegetables in the garden. She was so angry that she crossed her waist and cursed at her mother. I scolded her and said, "Next time you dare to eat my food, I'll cut all the seedlings in your field with a sickle." Gradually, I became notorious in the village. Those aunties always advise me, "You don't have a brother or younger brother. You have such a big temper, and when you come to your husband's house in the future, no one will support you." Mom looked at me and sighed. Just like her, she may not be able to get married yet, but Mom, I just, protecting you, protecting this home. In the blink of an eye, my sister should start preschool. On this day, 2 major events occurred that affected my life. On the first day of my sister's preschool class, the teacher taught counting, but 3 times. My sister can count 1 to 100. The substitute teacher is from the village and praises her mother. "Your family is much smarter in autumn than in summer." The second is that the 8 brothers of the same clan were diagnosed with gastric cancer. At that time, there was no medical insurance, and for rural people, getting cancer was equivalent to being sentenced to death. However, it was unexpected that the daughter of Uncle Ba, who had studied technical secondary school and worked in the city, sent Uncle Ba to the hospital. After cutting off half of his stomach, The 8 big uncle survived and chatted with the villagers about the fun of being hospitalized in the city. That day when I came back from the 8 uncle's house, my mother grabbed my dad who was going out to play poker. Jianjun, Chiu is so smart. As long as we cultivate her well, she will not be inferior to our son. With faith, parents are rejuvenated. Originally, they treated me and my sister the same. From that day on, my sister gained more preferences. If there is only one chicken leg, it must belong to her. She doesn't want to have breakfast at home, and her mother will give her 50 cents to buy corn cakes. Only when I am sick can I receive such treatment. Every Chinese New Year, my younger sister will definitely have a new outfit, and I always wear old clothes that my 2 aunts picked up. Double grab the autumn harvest. My sister doesn't need to go to the field. Mom said, these hands are used for writing, and they won't be of use to you. Cho, you must study hard and give our family a break. My younger sister is indeed very smart and has always been the top student in the class, receiving awards every semester. At that time, the certificate of commendation was much more valuable than it is now. It has to be said that a large part of learning this matter depends on talent. I work several times harder than my sister. I go to bed at 11 o'clock and get up at 5 o'clock every day. On the way to school by bike, I can memorize 10 English words. On weekends, I go to the mountains to chop bamboo, pick mushrooms, pick tea leaves, and pick tea seeds. The money I sell is saved up and used to buy extracurricular exercise books. At that time, the school was a row-dry toilet. Once, when I squatted in the toilet with my math test paper, when I solved the problem, I found that my legs were numb and I almost stepped on the pile of dung. I have always adhered to the principle of stupid birds fly first, but the effect is not obvious. Although I don't want to admit it, I am the ordinary one in the crowd. It's the background board in the TV drama, the passerby in the novel, and who's the one at the classmate gathering. My mother has been whispering in my ear, Xia, you are my sister. You must protect and support her. No need for you to repeatedly remind me. Mom, I have been protecting my sister since she was born. A few years passed quickly and I took the middle school entrance examination. Before my grades were released, Xiang from the village invited me to work in Guangdong. She was full of longing. In the factory, she could earn 800 yuan a month. I can buy a beautiful dress, and I also want a perm. In the scorching heat of midsummer, the aunt sat under the big maple tree and waved a cattail fan, saying to her, if Xia can make money to pay for Chiu's tuition, you too will be much more relaxed. Mom smiled and said, yes, it's up to Chiu now. I procrastinated and finally arrived at the day of my grades. In the scorching summer, my hands and feet are as cold as ice. Even though I have done my best, I am still 9 points short of the scoreline in number 1 middle school. Just 9 points away. If I worked harder, if I worked on more sets of questions, if I carefully checked every exam, would my life be different? The admission letter from number 2 middle school has been sent to my home. That night, under the dim yellow light, my mother looked at the notice and sighed. Xia, few of these 2 high schools can get into college every year. Chiu is in 5th grade this year, and your father and I want to send her to the county town to attend junior high school next year, but that's a significant expense. If you two study together, your father and I, hey, the contact of the incandescent lamp is poor, and the sound of piercing is like serrations cutting repeatedly in my heart. My parents looked at me silently, waiting for me to say, forget it, I won't read this sentence. My younger sister is innocent and innocent. If my sister wants to go to high school, she can go there. It's the same for me to go to junior high school in the countryside. Dad scolded her. Do you know what? Can the countryside be like the city? After a long silence, I clenched my fists and said, then I won't go to high school anymore. The homeroom teacher said that if I were to attend a vocational school with this score, I would be able to waive tuition fees. I almost begged, Dad, Mom, when I graduate from vocational school, I will definitely earn the money I spent in these 3 years for you. Looking back at this paragraph now, I can understand my parents' decision. There are only so many resources at home. We need to provide the one who can stand out more. I am an ordinary girl, destined to be given up. But if I had the opportunity to travel back, I would definitely roll around, kneel down and plead, do my best, and also go to high school. My grandmother and aunt both scolded me. Why can't you forgive your parents? All the other girls in the village have gone to work and your grades are not good, so you have to continue studying. It's useless. The village women also advised their parents. Now that vocational schools are no longer responsible for distribution, it's not very useful to read them. It's just a matter of having a son, a daughter. Why are you spending so much money? Tell her to work early and build a house for you. Your adobe house will collapse at some point. Before the start of school, my mother repeatedly reminded me of the cost of living. It's not easy for us to provide you. You should save some money. Technical secondary schools are completely different from rural consumption in the city. 200 yuan a month is enough to eat. At that time, the internet had already emerged, and I applied for chatting with Xiang on. She said, the work on the assembly line is not done by people. She works 12 hours a day and takes 4 days off a month. If she fails to complete the task, she will have to deduct money. I go crazy every day when I look at those parts. Xia, it's better to read. There is a foreign company across from us, and those white-collar workers wearing high heels and lipstick are sitting in the office. Not to mention being too relaxed. That's when Korean dramas are popular, and my chosen major is business Korean. I have set a goal for myself. I must enter a foreign company and work in a grid. Although I don't work as hard as I did in junior high school, I didn't slack off and worked hard. My roommates go to internet cafes to play games and pursue dramas. I usually go to search for information or practice speaking with Korean dramas. I wake up at 6 o'clock every day, run, have breakfast, study by myself, and then go to class. I have no class hours, except for part-time jobs. I spend most of my time in the library. I have read a lot of books. At that time, I was young and couldn't distinguish and choose well. Just bolt down the date and stuff it all in one go. Our school has a bad atmosphere, and few people study. Both men and women are wearing the popular killer hairstyle. The girl was painting smoky makeup with invisible beads, while the boy was smoking with earrings. Some are brave, holding and kissing and gnawing and touching in the cafeteria. As long as it doesn't cause any harm, the teacher doesn't care. In order to save on travel expenses, I usually don't go home. Every time I call my mother, she always reminds me repeatedly, don't cause trouble at school, save money. It's not easy for me and your father to make money. I rarely buy new clothes, always only have 2 pieces of underwear to wear, and cosmetics are not touched. I feel guilty when I go out with my roommate and spend 2 yuan to order the cheapest lemonade. Yes, my mother's advice made me feel guilty for spending every penny. Many years later, I can make money on my own, but when shopping, the first thing I do is look at the price. Even though I can completely afford that dress, I still don't have enough confidence. Poverty is firmly engraved in my bones. I spent a long time, gradually erasing its imprint, but perhaps I will be influenced by it for the rest of my life. There is a very handsome boy named Zhao Liang in the senior year who likes me, chased me for over 2 months, buying food every day and waiting for me downstairs. My roommates advised me to follow him. He is so handsome. I heard his family is quite wealthy. Not bad for you. Give it a try. I refused. Smoking, drinking, and fighting, in the eyes of girls aged 15 or 16, are characterized by a handsome personality, but I don't like it. About a month later, Zhao Liang talked about his new girlfriend and was actually a senior from the next university. He swaggered through the market with his senior sister, and many boys praised him for his abilities. He even came to show off in front of me. At the night's lying down meeting, the roommates were indignant. It's only been a while now, so I'll switch to her embrace. I don't think that woman is very good either. She is 3 or 4 years older than us. And she's not as beautiful as Xia Xia. After a campaign, the dormitory chief said softly, but she's from Normal University, a serious college student. For a moment, the dormitory was silent. At that time, we already understood that there was an invisible gap that had already separated us from them, because of their admiration for academic qualifications. All the boys envied Zhao Liang because he crossed the ditch and held the hand of the person opposite him. That senior student doesn't seem to have to attend classes and follows Zhao Liang around our school every day. My younger sister passed the exam for the county junior high school, and my parents rented a small house in the county town to study with me. This incident caused a great uproar in the village. Grandma stomped her cane and cursed. A pair of girls. You've put in so much effort. You're just spending money on someone else's house. With that money, please help your nephew, so that no one can throw a bucket when he dies. The villagers also laughed openly and secretly. It's better to hire a doorstep son-in-law for parents. Mom held her breath tightly, urging her younger sister to be resolute. He told me again, you also need to study hard. When you have an internship, your parents' burden will be lighter. There are not many opportunities to visit the small county town. My parents push their cars to sell stir-fried noodles, and sometimes they are driven away by urban management, earning enough money to cover the expenses of the whole family. Technical secondary school is a 3-year program. With the first 2 years in school, I started my internship during the summer vacation of my 2nd year in vocational school, and the school arranged for me to go to the assembly line. I refused and decided to find a job on my own, along with a few classmates who insisted on studying together. In the past 2 years, my grades have always been among the top. I have also participated in several competitions and won awards. I have chips. I bought myself a professional outfit and had my roommate put on makeup for me. The weather was very good that day, and when I went out, there was a dazzling glow. It's a good omen. I brought my resume with confidence and hoped to attend an interview with a foreign company. Unexpectedly, I met the senior student from Normal University, who is also among the interviewees. I had a momentary panic and quickly calmed down. She skips classes every day, either in an internet cafe or a bar, and I have been studying seriously. While waiting, I repeatedly reviewed my Korean self-introduction in my heart. Strive for impeccability. Finally, the interviewer appeared. She quickly glanced at the collected resume and divided it into left and right sides. Li Lin, open up. Li Bai, Zhang Xiaxia, called my name. I quickly stood up and prepared for the battle. However, the next sentence from the HR manager was like a bucket of ice water pouring down one's head. Follow Mr. Liu to the factory. The rest can be left for a second interview. How could this happen? I took a step forward and excitedly asked, Manager, why? Take a look at my resume. My grades are very good. I have won many awards, and my spoken English is also good. She glanced at my resume and said faintly, but you have a vocational school degree, and our office has the lowest undergraduate degree. If you are particularly outstanding, I can also fight for a vocational school degree. Technical secondary school. She paused. It's really too low. I fell from the high platform of hope and was covered in bruises. My ears were buzzing, and I vaguely heard her say, follow Mr. Liu and behave well. I'll recommend you as the team leader. My senior student has entered the 2nd round of exams. She gave me a meaningful glance as she followed the HR manager away. Back that day, there was a rainstorm. I soaked it into soup. Chicken, crying loudly in the heavy rain. Why am I working so hard and still unable to get that knocking brick? I am not willing and have tried many companies again. Without exception, they were all rejected. One company spoke very directly. If the chicken head and phoenix tail are placed together, we will still choose the phoenix tail. After learning about it, my parents advised me, isn't everyone like this? Take your time, as long as you have a job to earn money. Auntie also mocked. As I have already said, nowadays vocational school students are of little use. Your book is for nothing. If my fate is destined to be an assembly line, Is my efforts over the past 2 years really in vain? My roommate saw that I was in a bad mood and pulled me to watch a movie. The movie tickets were bought for 5 yuan by pulling wool. At the entrance of the cinema, I met my senior student. She dresses completely different from before, exuding a professional feminine aura. She smiled at me and said, "I broke up with Zhao Liang, and we are not from the same world after all. If you want to catch up with me," and she shakes her coffee in her hand, "then take the college entrance exam first." Vocational school student, go to college. Can I still take the college entrance exam? I was very confused and happened to have a double grab at home, so I went back to my hometown. Encountered Xiang. She is pregnant and will have a wedding 3 days later. But it's only 2 months until she turns 18. I went there on the wedding day. She had a big belly and her black hair was tangled around her head. The red gauze skirt was high and raised, and the low-quality lipstick was fainted by the tea, and the corners of the mouth were covered in red. I asked her, "Is your husband treating you well?" She held onto her heavy belly and smiled. "He was in the same factory as me, and we slept together in a daze. Now that we have all the children, what's the best thing? Didn't you say you wanted to dye your hair back then?" He refused, saying that his disheveled hair looked like a young lady sitting on the stage. After finishing the banquet, it rained. The rainstorm of summer beat me hard on the face. I walked faster and faster against the wind and rain. I'm so scared. Can the fragrant present be my future? If I succumb to fate and become a screw on the assembly line, will I soon come back with a strong stomach and get married? Then, muddled through a lifetime, I stepped on a muddy foot and got home. I pushed open the creaking courtyard door and shouted, "Dad, Mom, I want to take the college entrance exam." There are many people sitting in the hall. My parents should have just returned from the field with mud on their legs. Grandparents, uncles, aunties, and a strange mother and son are also present. That mother and son are distant relatives of the aunt's family. My son is 24 years old and looks foolish. In the countryside, this age is an older male youth. Auntie wants to arrange our marriage. My grandmother heard me say I wanted to take the college entrance exam and scolded me, saying that my brain was burned out. "Auntie, xia, did you just drink and talk nonsense? My nephew's family has very good conditions. The newly built building. You are my own niece, and I only think of you when there are good things. Yes, we can offer a dowry of 30,000 yuan. The aunt in a crimson-red dress smiled. "You don't even need to prepare a dowry." Grandma laughed happily. "At first glance, you are a good person and will definitely treat my granddaughter well in the future." My granddaughter may be doing something. Aunt looked at me up and down and said, "I just lost a little weight, and I'm afraid giving birth will be a pain in the face. My family is already quite strong. What I mean is that we will get engaged first on the 18th of this month, and the 2 children will go to work in Guangdong together to cultivate our relationship. We will get married by the end of the year." At that time, the basic process of rural blind dates was like this: get engaged, go to work together, get pregnant while working, come back to get married during the Chinese New Year. Mom sneered. "Xia is still young." Grandma scolded. "It's almost 18. What a small thing." Dad was smoking a hand-rolled tobacco and remained silent in Grandma's fierce eyes. "They are weak, as they have always been. What I want, I can only fight for it myself." I flipped the table and said fiercely to my aunt, "His family has such good conditions. I want to marry you. If you want to force me, I will hang myself at your doorstep and see who dares to be your daughter-in-law in the future." This marriage has come to an end. Auntie propagated my bad behavior throughout the village. Mothers say I'm crazy. She's a serious high school student who can't even get into college every day. What kind of dream does she have as a vocational school student? Do you think college entrance examination is like planting cabbage, and sowing seeds can lead to seedling emergence? Grandma cursed her mother to the bone. Finally, it's not up to her to marry or not. That's 30,000 yuan. With this money, I happen to decorate your big brother's house. De Bao is also 22 years old, and it's time to talk about his wife. That night, my mother asked me how a vocational school student would take the college entrance exam. My eyes lit up with hope and I couldn't wait to say my plan. The resumption school can accept me, and there is a quite famous school in the neighboring county. After a long silence, Mom asked, "How much tuition does that cost?" $3,000 per semester. Repeated schools are profit-oriented. I have a foundation like this, but they don't really want to pay all the fees. Mom sighed again. So much money. What was the concept of 3,000 at that time? Mom sells iron plate stir-fried noodles on the street for 1 yuan per serving, excluding various costs. One share earns approximately 3 cents. Mom took out a tin box and, under the dim yellow light, counted the crumpled tickets one by one. This money was originally intended to enroll your sister in the Olympiad math class, but now it's all for you, and it's not enough. Her hands were laboring all year round, black and wrinkled. The corners of my eyes are covered in dense wrinkles, just looking at me quietly. More than 2 years ago, she also used this kind of look to make me retreat and go to vocational school. I clenched my fists tightly, resisting my inner guilt, and knelt in front of my parents. Calculate what I borrowed, and I will double it in the future. No, 5 times 10 times. Please, don't break the wings of my dreams. Please, also take a look at me, who is ordinary but hardworking. My sister cried. Mom, let my sister study. I can skip tutoring classes. I will definitely get the first place in my grade. Dad, who has been silent for a long time, put out the cigarette on his hand and said, "For just 1 year. If it doesn't work out, you'll work obediently and get married." At night, my sister and I squeezed into a small bed. She whispered, "Sister, I now realize that winning first place is not that easy, because we are born into dots and then form circles. The larger the circle, the more unknowns will be discovered outside. You will know that you are really insignificant. Some people shrink from this and make a limited ball, but I don't. Even if I am destined to be ordinary, I will expand and expand again. Even in the end, I am still a particle of dust in the universe. I did my best and I don't regret it." For a whole week, I was surrounded by ridicule and verbal abuse. The abuse comes from my grandmother, saying that I am a fool who makes mistakes, that I daydream, and that I won't have the life of a college student, laughing at many mouths from the village. They have identified my failure and advised my parents not to waste money, rather than save money for retirement. In mid-July, I bid farewell to my sister and parents and went to study in the neighboring county. My sister escorted me to the car at the village entrance. "Sister, you need to come on, Chiao. If you don't want to rot here all your life, don't slack off either. You don't know how much I envy you for having a smart head." That year, my younger sister was in the 2nd year of junior high school, and I was equivalent to going to the 3rd year of senior high school. Repeated classes are not easy to attend. Everyone has attended high school and has a foundation. The teacher is teaching exercises in class. Whether poor students like us can keep up is not within their consideration. I am a blank sheet of paper. At first it was like listening to a heavenly book. My parents only gave me tuition fees. I wash a few baskets of bowls for my aunt in the cafeteria every day, so that she can have 3 free meals. I usually eat whatever is left over. Later, when my aunt saw me working hard, she would save chicken legs or braised pork belly for me. You are still growing. Eating leftovers every day is not enough. I could eat 5 taels of rice per meal, and at that time, I was not afraid of gaining weight at all. I just felt like I couldn't eat enough. At 10:30 p.m., the dormitory lights out. I am studying in the hallway with a book. The hallway is an induction light that went out in a short while, and one must walk back and forth. In summer, there are so many mosquitoes that the toilet water doesn't work at all. I dare not shoot loudly for fear of disturbing other students. I can only push my legs desperately. I came down all night with bags all over my legs. The atmosphere at school is very oppressive. Everyone is buried in reading, and there is little communication. I have too much to understand, but everyone is pressed for time and unwilling to waste time helping someone with a zero foundation. Later on, class monitor Jiang Xin couldn't stand it. I'll teach you. I always go to her with questions, and her tone has never been very good. It doesn't matter. I have already been beaten by society. Are you still afraid of this expression? But after getting along for a long time, I realized that she is actually very kind. She lent me her notes and exercise books from her first and second year of high school. That would overuse my eyes, and my vision has decreased significantly. The words that could have been clearly understood have become blurred. Glasses cost over 100 yuan per pair, but I don't have the money and can only grit my teeth and endure it. I struggled to climb up from the bottom of the class. No matter how much I pray, time has never slowed me down by a minute. A semester passed quickly, and in the last monthly exam before the year, I took the classes last 18. I looked at the transcript and smiled, then cried. Over 300 points. For the average high school student, it may be a score that can be obtained with their eyes closed, but only I know how difficult it is. That 30 night, my father pushed open my door and asked me, "Aren't you going out to watch the Spring Festival Gala?" I held a pen in my mouth and didn't look up. Wait a moment, I'll finish this set of questions. Dad stood at the door and remained silent for a while, then turned around and led the door out. The sound on the TV outside has also decreased significantly. When I finish and go out, on the big belly TV, I'm singing Unforgettable Tonight. On the second day of the Lunar New Year, my grandmother and aunt brought up the old story again and wanted to propose a marriage to me. Although this is a second marriage, they can offer a dowry of 80,000 yuan. But after passing this village, there will be no such store. Dad once had a hard time. Let's wait until she finishes the exam about getting married. Auntie rolled her eyes. The girl's youth is only a few years, and after 20, there won't be such a good market. If you two don't listen to advice, you will regret it in the future. It's already February after the new year, and time is extremely tight. I found myself at a bottleneck where there was not enough time and I was extremely anxious. The aunt in the cafeteria won't let me wash the dishes anymore. I'm a bit flustered because my mother only gave me 100 yuan in living expenses, which won't last for a month. Auntie wiped her hands on her apron and smiled at me. You will come to eat for the next 3 meals, and I won't charge you any money. You focus on studying. I'll take good care of you. Thank you, Auntie. Auntie was taken aback and muttered, "I thought you would refuse. I've prepared a lot of things." I chuckled and my eyes turned red, bowing deeply to her. "Thank you." Auntie also turned red in her eyes and waved her hand back, saying, "Hurry up and study. My daughter had to work as hard as you did before, and I would have offered to smash the pot and sell the iron." Jiang Xian also saw my anxiety. Before the evening self-study, she took a piece of rough paper. I drew a big tree. Imagine the history of a dynasty as a tree. The year is the backbone, and the various things that happen are the branches of this tree, filling it up bit by bit. Memories are also skilled, finding the right way to remember. My bottleneck was knocked open by her. I abandoned all distractions and studied day and night. June has arrived. The small gardenia downstairs in the dormitory has opened, with a faint fragrance floating. The card of the college entrance examination is rolling in. On the 6th, after dinner, Jiang Xian took me to the playground. The night gradually penetrated. The light was dim, and half of her face was immersed in shadows. "Xia xia, if you don't pass the exam this year, will you do it again? I probably won't have another chance." I tightened my grip. "Don't worry, you will definitely pass the exam this time, but what I want to go to is Fudan." She suddenly grabbed my hand and walked away. "Let's seize this last moment and write another set of questions. Tomorrow is the exam, and many people choose to relax. There aren't many people in the classroom." Jiang Xian pulled out a set of mathematical Huanggang secret scrolls and tore them in half. "Let's do this. I think this question will definitely pass. Every second of the exam is so long and torturous. After the end, I felt like I was hollowed out. Walking is light and ethereal. Pack up your luggage. I bid farewell to Jiangxian and go home. Thank you for pulling me to do the exam that day. She smiled brightly. I said, that question will definitely be taken. My father is working on the construction site to support our sisters. Mom is pushing a cart to sell stir-fried noodles. I packed my luggage and went to find her, but she happened to be driven away by the city management. The scooter was old and heavy, and as she stepped on the pedal up the slope, her body stood up. Even her hair seemed to be exerting force. My eyes were very tight, so I quickly ran up to resist the force behind me. Mom turned around and saw me with a wrinkled smile on her face. Finished the exam. She didn't ask me how I was doing in the exam, but only said to her father in the evening when she applied a plaster, "You want to take the college entrance exam?" And I also gave it to your father. You can't blame me for being biased towards your father in the future. After you finish robbing, you can go and work. Originally, they never thought I could pass the exam. On the day of the exam, it happened to be Grandma's birthday. Mom got up at 5 a.m., went to the vegetable market to buy some vegetables, and took the earliest bus home. She was busy in the kitchen, and the aunt was chatting and washing vegetables at the entrance of the courtyard. Washing celery for half an hour. The dishes are being served one after another, and my mother is still busy in the kitchen, because it is a birthday celebration. Many family and friends have come. A total of 3 round tables were held. Everyone has taken their seats, and there is no place for their mother. Auntie called to her mother who was still busy in the kitchen. Osmanthus, stop busy and come sit down. Grandma knocked on the bowl and said, don't worry about her. She's just that awkward and doesn't fall in love with the table. Sister looked at the clock on the wall and whispered, Sister, it's 12 o'clock. Can I check my grades now? I didn't expect the aunt to hear. She sneered and said, what's there to check? After 3 years of hard work, she may not be able to pass the exam. She's not smart at all. After studying for a year, it's strange to be able to pass the exam. Can you get a score of 300 on the exam? My relatives. Every word you say is discouraging. My uncle scolded my father even more. The girl should get married early. You let her play around and waste so much money. Auntie laughed so much that her whole body trembled with fat. He doesn't have a son, which is something he can't do. Grandma said with a stern face, you promised before that if Xia Xia didn't pass the exam, your homestead would be given to Debao, and you can't go back on your word. Dad's shoulders tightened tightly and handed me the old Nokia. Check it out. Aunt is chewing on melon seeds, with no intention. Xia Xia, everyone cares about you very much. You're driving a hands-free check. I know that my grades are not just about my own future. There is also my father's face, my mother's waist, and the unused homestead in our family. I took a deep breath, dialed the inquiry number, and entered the exam number that was deeply engraved in my mind. After the agonizing wait, the mechanical announcement sounded. Language 121, Mathematics 92, English 105, when Zone 240. The total score is 548. That year, the number of liberal arts second-tier students was 523, and the number of first-tier students was 578. My hands have been shaking and my ears are buzzing. Suspecting that I had heard wrong, I pressed again to repeat the broadcast. The noisy hall was now silent. Only the sound of mechanical broadcasting echoed and impacted. My younger sister was the first to react, and she hugged me. Sister, you passed the exam. You passed the second-tier exam. You exceeded the score by 25 points. You're so amazing. Dad's eyes turned red, and he took up the wine in front of him and drank it all in one gulp. He muttered to himself, I passed the exam. I really did. Mom, I don't know when, was already leaning against the front door of the hall. She turned her back and wiped her eyes with her hand, then slowly squatted down against the wall. Dad stood up and walked over. She hugged her father's leg and began to sob. Dad patted her shoulder and said, why are you crying? It's a good thing. Xia Xia passed the exam, and we have hope in the future. Sister reached out to wipe my face and smiled. Sister, don't cry either. Did I cry? I reached out and wiped it, but my face was covered in tears. 548 points. Maybe for you who are smart, it really doesn't matter. But I am the ordinary Zhang Xiaxia. From childhood to adulthood, I tried my best but never won the first place, and the awards I received were few and far between. I will never be able to solve the last question on my math paper. I have never been the child that my parents value the most, and no one in my family has praised me. A year ago, I was rejected by a foreign company, and at this moment, I passed the exam. Although it's only 2 books, it's enough to pull me out of my muddy life. Auntie's chopsticks are almost broken, and with a smile on her face, she said without a smile, I was admitted to a second-tier university, not a key undergraduate program. As for being happy like this, I wiped away the tears from my face. Of course I'm happy. Isn't that much better than 300 points? Big brother and second brother didn't even pass high school. My younger brother is about to take the high school entrance examination. Right. My cousin has been playing games with the game console, and at this moment, his face is full of impatience. Don't talk to me. I'm not a student. My aunt's teeth are all broken. She snatched his game machine. You can't serve dim sum. My cousin scolded her. You haven't taken any interest in me either. Uncle and Auntie sent me to the county town to accompany Xia and Xiao to study. Auntie is furious. Just your score of 300 points. What's wrong with 300 points? Sister Xia couldn't score 300 points before. My cousin kicked off the chair and it was really annoying. Grandma stood up trembling and said, Sanbo, where are you going? I haven't eaten anything yet. Stop eating. I'm full of gas. My cousin turned around and disappeared. Grandma scolded Auntie. Look at what you've done. The child left without even eating. No wonder she hasn't been able to grow tall. Mom has already sorted out her emotions. I brought her over and pressed her in the position of my cousin. Mom, sit down and eat. She wiped her eyes and said, there's still a water spinach that hasn't been fried yet. I gave Auntie a glance and said, let Auntie go. You've been busy for so long. The aunt's face changed and she was about to refuse when she spoke. Grandma looked at her and said, what are you waiting for? Go ahead. The guests are still waiting. Mom sat down firmly, showing a pleased smile. I am the first serious college student in the Laojing family. Among so many relatives present, the most common among the younger generation is to attend a junior college. In just over 10 minutes, everyone's tone changed one after another. Congratulations and envy are endless in my ears. In past gatherings like this, the uncle and his family, who gave birth to 3 sons, were the focus of attention. Nowadays, attention is all in my house. Jianjun, you still have the courage. Xia Xia was admitted to university, and autumn was also a matter of certainty. Both daughters are college students, and I don't know how comfortable they will be in the future. Auntie smiled and said, in the future, you can't finish drinking this good wine during Chinese New Year holidays. Our custom is that during holidays, the son-in-law will bring wine to the father-in-law. Uncle sighed. You didn't, son. There is no need to earn dowry, and the money collected from the dowry at that time does not need to be used to supplement his son. He can keep it on his own. I can't help but wish I had more daughters. Yes, the daughter of a college student. This dowry must cost 80,000 to 100,000 yuan. My smile gradually faded. Listen, it's so scary. For girls who are admitted to college, the value is that they can receive higher dowry fees. A cousin sighed. You don't know. Getting married now is different from before. The buildings built in the village are not worth it, so you have to go to the city to buy a house. It's not that easy to buy a house in the city. I have to repay the loan for 30 years, and my bones have turned to ashes. I haven't even paid off the mortgage. When it comes to this, everyone is pouring out bitterness. The times have indeed changed. If you work outside, it's okay to be able to talk to someone on your own. If we can't talk about it, If we rely on blind dates, the expenses will be huge. Many girls also request to buy a house in the city and not live with their parents. This is extremely difficult for rural people who have limited means of making money. Speaking of this, the aunt asked the aunt, didn't it mean that DeBeo talked about a girlfriend? He's also 25. You guys need to hurry up. Auntie's face looked ugly. Divided. Well done. How did you divide it? He looks too ugly. Auntie frowned and said, Sister, I have seen that girl before and she looks quite decent. Grandma knocked on the bowl. It was your sister-in-law who picked up her mother-in-law's shelf and asked people to wash dishes and cook before she even passed the door, which really made me angry. DeBeo hasn't called home for 2 months now. For a moment, everyone was constantly criticizing. Auntie defended herself a few words, but was accused even more harshly. It wasn't until my aunt talked about my son's studies that everyone's conversation turned back to their parents. Dad drank a lot of wine and his face was flushed with red light. The dampness in my eyes is due to alcohol or excitement. After the banquet ended, my mother wanted to go to the kitchen to wash dishes again. I grabbed her and said, Mom, you bought the dishes and you cooked them. Let the lady wash the dishes. My sister and I dragged her back. Auntie shouted from behind, Sisters, sisters, bowl. Mom took a deep breath and turned around and smiled. I'm a bit drunk. You can wash the dishes yourself. Out of the aunt's yard. Her mother quickened her pace and took a few steps, when she suddenly burst into laughter. Smiling and laughing, she cried again. She turned around and hugged me. Sia sia, sia sia, you're really giving Mom a boost. Mom finally straightened her waist once. By the time Chocho passes the exam, her mother will be able to fully straighten her waist. I really want to tell her, Mom, even without a son, you can still hold your head and chest high. Life is one's own. Don't worry about those idle words. But I know she can't do it. She couldn't shake off the ideas that were engraved in her bones from a young age. Only my sister and I have been moving upwards. Our excellence will be her glory and confidence. The news from the countryside spreads quickly. That night, everyone in the village knew that I had passed the exam. Everyone was surprised. After all, I have never shown any talent for learning. Dad put his hands in his pockets and strolled from the village head to the village end. When I returned, I took out more than 10 cigarettes from my pocket, all given by others. Mom went to the pond to wash clothes, which became the focus of the ladies. Her face turned red for several days. I went to fill out my application and finally met Jiang Xan. How did you do on the exam? In proportion, it is 8 points higher than last year's Fudan admission line, which should be considered appropriate. I just can't go to the major I want. So that's going too. Her eyes were shining brightly. Let's find a way there. The homeroom teacher found me alone. Zhang Xiaxia, if you study for another year, I think you should be able to pass the entrance exam. Another year. My parents won't agree. I shook my head and said, that's it. I won't read anymore. Jiang Xian hugged my shoulder and said, don't be discouraged. You can go to graduate school, and with your perseverance, you can even go to Fudan University. I am waiting for you at Fudan. I filled out a second-tier school in the provincial capital and applied for a student loan. My parents are proud of me, and I think I have opened a new chapter in my life. But in fact, many things have not changed. During the summer vacation, I helped my mother stir-fry and found various part-time jobs. I once made dolls for a newly opened store. In a weather of 38 degrees Celsius, I was wearing a thick doll suit, and at the end of the day, my whole body collapsed. When I returned home, I found a watermelon soaking in the bucket. I took the knife and couldn't wait to open it. Mom came back. She patted my hand. Let's eat together after your sister finishes school. She will come back from school soon. It must be very hot. I want to eat now. Can't wait for just an hour. Mom frowned. Why are you so impatient? She kept chattering away. Finally, with my persistence, she still opened that watermelon. When my father came back from work, she criticized me again at the dinner table about this matter. But Mom, if it's my sister who wants to eat, would you make her wait for me who hasn't come home yet? School is about to start soon. My mother counted me 500 yuan, 200 tickets, 350 tickets, and the rest is a stack of 20 yuan gross tickets. She counted 3 times. Now the city management is becoming increasingly strict, and my business is not easy to do. Your father's contractor always doesn't pay his wages, so you must save some money. Be honest outside and don't cause trouble. When she handed the money over to me, she withdrew another 100. You have also done a lot of part-time jobs during the summer vacation, so you should still have money with you. At night, my sister secretly handed me 200 yuan. Where did you get the money? My aunt secretly gives me 100 yuan every year for the Chinese New Year, which I save. Look, smart children are always more likable and enjoy privileges. I convinced myself not to worry. I can work part-time in college, and there's definitely no problem supporting myself. But it's not that easy either. There are many provincial universities, including 2985 and 1211. By comparison, our small second edition is simply not worth mentioning. I applied for a tutor, but as soon as I heard the name of your school, I immediately refused. I can only send out flyers on weekends, or go to some newly opened stores to fill in. This type of part-time job is not common, and the competition is fierce. Intermediaries also make a lot of profits. Later, by chance and error, I found a night shift job at a business tea house. From above 5 to 11:30. The dormitory entrance guard is at 11 o'clock. I buy some fruit for the housekeeper every month, and sometimes I pack the clean dim sum left in the tea house for her. She kept the door open for me. You can have a working meal for dinner and save some money. At first, I worked as an ordinary waiter, 1,200 a month. It's very hard. Later, I found out that the tea artists in the store had high salaries and were much more relaxed. So when I had time, I went to agricultural university to take classes, and they offered courses in tea science. At that time, I was really like a top. During the day, I shuttle between my own university and agricultural university, and at night, I work at a tea house. Go to bed after midnight every day, and you can fall asleep as soon as you close your eyes. Opening my eyes, I am once again an energetic fighter. Compared to the college entrance examination, the tea artist exam is still much simpler. I took the intermediate exam first, and my salary increased by 600. Then I took the advanced exam and received an additional 600 yuan in salary. By the end of my freshman year, my basic salary had already reached 2,400. Some customers will recommend the tea I buy, which can earn me a profit. By calculation, I can earn around 3,000 yuan per month. At that time, the senior and senior students who graduated from our major generally earned salaries in the early 2000s. That year, my younger sister passed the high school entrance examination and reached the top 30 in the county. A key high school in the provincial capital contacted their parents and threw an olive branch at their sister. County number 1 middle school, in order to retain talents, says it can waive tuition and accommodation fees. My grandmother and aunt strongly oppose going to the provincial capital. What else are you thinking? You must have stayed at number 1 middle school. Going to the provincial capital to study, tuition and living expenses. What a huge expense would be. If I don't pass the exam, wouldn't all this money be wasted? My sister really wants to go. In recent years, there has been a serious brain drain in the county. Many teachers have been poached by good schools in the city and province. The admission rate of County 1 middle school is declining year by year. My parents are very hesitant. After all, it's still money. I took the time to go home and brought out 5,000 yuan. Of course, I came to the provincial capital. The higher the starting point, the higher the steps that autumn can climb, and the future life will be different. I have taken so many detours, hoping that my sister can sail smoothly and avoid any wrong choices. My mother showed off a bit, saying that I can pay for my sister's tuition. Grandma and auntie were both shocked. After all, I am still studying and can earn a lot of money just by taking part-time jobs. The next day, there were rumors in the village that I was fooling around outside every night and earning dirty money. After dinner that night, my mother asked Ai, Xia, you shouldn't really be fooling around in the provincial capital, right? How can you earn so much money as a student? I am so angry that my brain is almost bursting. Forget the nonsense of those people in the village. She is my mother. How could she be so suspicious of me? I killed her once. Dad scolded me. Your mother is also worried about you. Reading so many books is what taught you to get angry with your parents. The next day, I stood outside the aunt's yard with a strange aura of yin and yang. I work the evening shift, not just fooling around. Some people have never been out of the county town in their lifetime, and they don't even know what evening shift means. If you have time to gossip everywhere, why don't you make money and find a wife for your son? Auntie almost died of anger. I advise my parents to make a living in the provincial capital. The larger the city, the more opportunities it has. Our manager's friend has contracted a university cafeteria and is currently recruiting workers. Granny firmly opposed and cursed loudly, saying that my father is an unfilial son and a white-eyed wolf, saying he's a fool. He's been busy all his life for 2 daughters who are going to get married anyway, but then it's still nothing. He said he disregarded his clan. Several nephews have not been married yet, and he has not put in any effort. Dad withdrew. He patted the grain wine and said, forget it. Once we go to the provincial capital, our land won't be able to be planted. You are already old and capable. In the future, when it comes to studying in autumn, you can give me a hand. Your mother and I have been tired for a lifetime, so we can take a break. Dad, I know you and Mom work very hard, but you are only in your 40s this year, and I am still a student studying, but I can't ask them to work hard. I can only motivate myself. That's when I understood how difficult it is for a girl to climb up, because there will be countless hands dragging you down. The loved ones who should have supported and encouraged you can sometimes be the heaviest burden. Fortunately, high school allows boarding. During the weekend vacation, I will take a car to Hashi to meet my sister. I have more professional courses in my sophomore year, and I have to prepare for the college entrance exam. I also have to work, which is busier than before. Big cities, high dragons and tigers. My sister's midterm exam is worth squeezing into the top 100 of her grade. That day, her mood was particularly low. Sister, I am really working harder than before. I touched her head. You can also feel my feelings now. This is the life of an ordinary person. I breathed a long sigh of relief. There was nothing at hand. We must work hard enough and never slack off. Otherwise we would be lost in the crowd. The afterglow of the sunset fell on her young and immature face. I am facing the direction of the sunset, autumn, but this is the meaning of our efforts. Enjoy the feeling of constantly striving upwards and breaking through one's limits. Chio, I believe you can do it. Every time we make a breakthrough, we hear a clicking sound. That is our rupture, and even more so, our rebirth. We work hard so that one day when we look back, we can say without any guilt, I did my best. I don't regret it. That winter, several things happened. Shangxiang has divorced. The child was left to the man. She is only 20 years old and her household registration book shows that she is unmarried. But she has already experienced a hopeless marriage, and her whole body has withered. My sister entered the top 50 of her grade in the final exam. De Tangu still embarked on the path of blind date, having no house, no car, no stable job, and being despised in every way. Finally, I chose someone 2 years older than him. The other party wants a dowry of 68,000 yuan and also 3 gold coins. Aunt, I dare not fart this time. Afraid of being picky again, my son will become a bachelor. Both parties are engaged on the 6th day of the first lunar month, and will be married at the end of the year. I hate aunties and I don't like Big Brother, but if he wants to get married, I can't stop him either. Anyway, it won't affect me either, but I am still too naive. On New Year's Eve, we gather at Uncle's house for New Year's Eve dinner. 2 aunts were also called back. This time, Auntie was very proactive. She prepared all the dishes, and I thought she had changed her personality. Who would have thought it was a request from others? Halfway through the meal, Grandma opened her mouth. "De Bao is getting engaged, and you uncles and aunts also need to contribute. The incense of the Zhang family cannot be cut off by us people. Otherwise how can we have the face to meet our ancestors in the future? De and I Shao and I. Each of you takes 5,000. Jianjun, you are an uncle. In the future, you will have to rely on your nephew to carry the basin. You take 20,000 yuan." I was completely open-minded. Immediate opposition. Big brother got married. Why should my father take the money? He himself is not without his parents. Grandma patted the table and said, "Shut up. Did you read your book in your asshole? I'm talking to your parents. What are you interrupting? You'll get married sooner or later. There's no place for you to speak. The 2 sister-in-law are in the city and their families are decent." Grandma repeatedly pressed each other, but although they were unwilling, they also promised to take the money. So, the pressure came to Dad's side. Auntie looked at Dad dribblily. "De Bao is also half your son. You uncle, can't be so heartless. In the future, when you get old, you will also live in the countryside. If you suffer from illness and anger, how many nephews can help you? You have to think clearly. Your daughter will eventually get married." Dad didn't immediately agree, but he didn't refuse at all. After dinner, we returned to our own adobe house. I advised my father not to believe my aunt's nonsense. A son may not necessarily support his parents, let alone his nephew. Dad frowned and said, "If you were a son, what would I care about him? If we don't help, in the future, Zhang Jiaxiang, what if the fire really breaks?" When your grandfather was about to die, he even held my hand and said this. Mom muttered, "Then let's also pay 5,000 yuan. Dad looked up at me and said, "Let's make 10,000. Xia xia, you haven't been working all the time. You're taking 5,000. At that moment, the anger almost burned me through. Where can I get 5,000? I don't have any money. Dad patted the table. Aren't you earning a decent salary? Did your family refuse to give you some support? I have to live on my own, and I am also responsible for the tuition and living expenses for Autumn." I tried my best not to cry. "Dad, I am also a student, and I am only 20 years old. I also want to be like my classmates, dress up beautifully, go shopping, watch movies, travel, fall in love, and enjoy youth. But I want to make money. My money is exchanged for youth and happiness. I can give it to my sister, and I can give it to my parents, but I won't give a penny to my cousin. The Zhang family is never the last. I don't care at all." I had a big argument with my father, but my mother couldn't help but cry. I slammed the door and entered the room, followed by my mother. The incandescent light shone on her gray hair, and she sighed long. "It's all my fault. If I had a son, your father wouldn't be so tired." "That's the same sentence again." I interrupted her. "Mom, my son and daughter are the same, and half of the blood flowing inside is from you. Daughters can also have good prospects or provide retirement for you. When will you finally understand?" That night, my sister squeezed into the bed and whispered to me, "Sister, have I been dragging you down?" "No. I'm just thinking, when will my parents' beliefs change? When I graduate from college and earn money, it should change. Will it?" My younger sister nodded heavily. "I will definitely." Dad finally took out 10,000 yuan. Some of them were borrowed from someone. I am really angry and sad. Auntie is not very happy. With a strange expression, "Just 10,000 yuan. That's not enough." She glared at me. "Isn't Xia Xia able to earn money? Your brother got married. You don't have to put in any effort." My face was puzzled. My tuition fees are all loans, and I was wondering if my eldest brother could lend me some money to pay for the tuition fees after getting engaged. The aunt's face suddenly changed and she said, "That's not the case. Your second brother and younger brother are also looking at each other. I don't know what she's muttering around again. The elders in the village are all holding their airs and scolding me. Xia xia, even after attending university, one cannot be above the top. You don't have a biological brother. Your cousin is a biological brother. You still need to help. Don't forget the root. Help. Absolutely impossible. I wish I could dig this out and cut it off. Mrs. Tang is very spicy. On the day of engagement, the aunt mentioned that when the two of them went to work together, they could have a child as soon as possible. My sister-in-law directly contacted. I have to obtain a marriage certificate to have a child. Otherwise, I will come in with my stomach full and be pinched everywhere. The aunt's face was almost green, and she dared not refute. This matter makes me understand. My parents, perhaps they will never be my reliance in this lifetime. They don't believe that I can achieve anything from the bottom of their hearts. That's it. I have to work even harder, because in my life, I can only rely on myself. I want to take the postgraduate entrance exam, so I registered an account for the Nanjing University Forum. At that time, forums were very popular. I searched for information and asked questions inside. Got to know Zhou Xiang. He is a doctoral student at South Central University. That will lead to the rise of smartphones. And WeChat will also take the lead. I bought a smartphone, applied for WeChat, and my first friend was him. He has clear thinking, stable emotions, and a kind and enthusiastic person. We will talk a lot. Classic movies, newly released songs, an unresolved puzzle, and occasionally a philosophical conversation. 2 months later, I will go near his school to deliver the tea that I previously ordered to the client. He asked me if I wanted to meet him by the way. The weather was very good that day, and the wind at the end of April blew on my face, making it hot. He is about 173, white and thin, wearing a checked shirt, casual pants, carrying a backpack, standing under a large camphor tree waiting for me. The protagonists in the novel are all handsome men and beautiful women, but in life, there are not so many handsome guys and beautiful girls. Ordinary men and women will still encounter love. I looked at his checkered shirt and smiled. Sure enough, it's the standard outfit for men in science and engineering. He looked a bit nervous and scratched his head. Isn't it beautiful? This is the new one I bought yesterday. My hair is also freshly cut. It's quite good. I have old clothes all over me, and I knew I should have bought new ones as well. He waved his hands repeatedly, his eyes bright. No need. It's also very beautiful. The love journey of ordinary people is very ordinary. There's not much green tea, little three-dog blood tearing. We eat together, climb mountains, press the road, and watch movies. In mid-May, we went to watch To the Youth That Will Die together. At the end of the movie, the cinema was filled with cries. Only I am a bit confused and lost. I find it difficult to empathize, perhaps because no one has loved me, and I have never loved anyone else. My youth is blank. Zhou wanted to turn around and look at me, but suddenly took my hand. His voice trembled. Your youth is not yet over. Let me fill it. Can you be my girlfriend? His palms were covered in sweat. I agreed. After leaving the cinema, he said to me, you don't know how scared I was just now that you would refuse me. You are a doctoral student from South Central University, so much better than me. How could you be afraid of me refusing? No, I think you are better than me. I'm afraid you might dislike me and I might not be worthy of you. At that time, I almost cried. It turns out that even though you are ordinary, there is always someone in this world who thinks you are unique. I feel like I need to stand on tiptoe to get you. Zhou Xiang found me a complete set of professional books, historical questions, and corresponding professional books for the postgraduate entrance examination at Central South University. As a sophomore, if I want to take the exam for a school and major that ranks so high, I must be a clumsy bird and fly first. Looking back now, at that time, I was young and energetic. Being so busy every day, I can still find time to fall in love. In the second semester of my junior year, time is even more pressing. I have to make a choice between work and taking the postgraduate entrance examination. The tea house where I am located is actually affiliated with a large tea factory, and this company is going to explore overseas markets next. Because I majored in English and understood tea, it was just right for me. The manager's intention is to hope that I can join this team. Once I achieve success, I am a hero in expanding my territory. However, at that time, taking the postgraduate entrance examination was imminent, leaving me with little time. Joe wants to support me in taking the postgraduate entrance exam. If you participate in work, you won't have such a large amount of time and environment to prepare for the exam in the future. I also lost the advantage of being a fresh student. He held my hand in the wild chrysanthemums of early autumn. Don't be afraid of living expenses. I can transfer 15 yuan to you every month. As he spoke, he took out his phone. I rejected him. I still have a deposit at the moment, and I will contact you when it's not enough. Actually, I want to take the postgraduate entrance examination, but there are also other factors. He is a doctoral student from a prestigious university, while I am just an ordinary sophomore. Moreover, his family background is very good. Once his mother gave him 5,000 living expenses. I thought it was a semester, but he said it was a month. I want to work hard to narrow the gap between us. In the college entrance examination, everyone strives for intelligence and hard work. At that time, taking the postgraduate entrance examination was not as challenging as it is now. Intelligence is second, but effort, persistence, and resistance to temptation are even more important. My parents are very opposed to learning that I want to take the postgraduate entrance examination. The postgraduate entrance examination is another 3 years. And your father and I are getting older. You have always been not smart. If you resign now and take the postgraduate entrance exam, you will not be able to earn any money. And if you fail to pass the exam, you will not be able to make ends meet. What about your sister's college tuition and living expenses when you go to graduate school? But I'm not the little girl of 17 or 18 who has to rely on their breathing. My sister also stated that she can borrow money for tuition fees. My parents have to give in. In the year when I was preparing for the postgraduate entrance examination, apart from Zhou Xiang and my sister, I almost cut off socializing, thinking that the three of us may be able to study in the same school in the future. I am full of motivation. I am like a sponge, desperately absorbing water, waiting for one day to stand on the balance of fate. That day finally arrived. That winter was particularly cold, and when I woke up in the morning, the ground froze. But during the 2 days of taking the postgraduate entrance examination, the sun rarely shone brightly, shining warmly on people. I did well in the first 3 exams. Zhou wants to wait for me outside the exam room. We are going to have a meal together. Just then, my phone rang. It was my mother calling. I hesitated for a few seconds, but then there came her panicked voice. Your father was drinking at someone else's house, and when he came back, he fell and his head was covered in blood. Xia, what should I do? What should I do? For a moment, I thought, I should turn off the phone. It's only one last game away. I have played well in the past. If I don't answer this phone call and successfully pass the exam, my life trajectory may be completely different, but there is no ifs in life. Zhou wants to accompany me to the hospital in a hurry. Dad had a stroke after drinking. I saved my life, but my speech was vague, and I didn't walk as quickly as before, let alone make money. He lay in bed, afraid to look at me directly. Summer. The ground is too slippery. Mom Gai. Your sister is in her 3rd year of high school, so don't let her know to avoid being distracted. Xia, your father won't be able to make money in the future. Don't take the postgraduate entrance exam. What will your family do if you go to graduate school? What about autumn? I kept telling myself to calm down, but I couldn't control it and collapsed, shouting loudly. I told you, why do I have to go drinking when I have exams these 2 days? Why can't you ever see me in your eyes? Why have I always been the one sacrificed? Even if you think about it for me once, you still value me, can't you? Do you know that I have been preparing for over a year? Do you know how many nights I've stayed up? How many questions have you done and how much pain have you endured? I don't ask you to give me a hand. At least don't keep dragging me down. At least don't tell me over and over again. You will always be the one to be abandoned. Mom and Dad buried their heads deeply. I saw clusters of white hair on their heads. Sorrow surged up in layers. Perhaps this is my fate. I ran all the way out of the hospital. Joe wants to chase me out and find me under a bare tree. He gently hugged me and patted my back. It's okay. You and me, in my place. You are always the most important. I turned around and hugged him, crying loudly. That winter, under that withered tree, I seem to have cried out all the grievances I have suffered over the past 20 years. Joe wanted to hold me and gently said, I'm sorry, I didn't even know before. Xia had suffered so much before, and it was only then that she grew up to be independent and strong now. I haven't told him too much about the past. What is there to praise about suffering? If I could choose, I also want to be a beloved little princess. When I return to the ward again, my mother said, otherwise, if you take the exam again next year, I can go wash the dishes and earn 2,000 yuan a month. My sister still learned the news. She told me, sister, I can get a scholarship or work part-time when I go to college. You focus on preparing for the war, and I will pay for your living expenses. My mother moved her lips and hesitated to speak. Forget it. I won't take the exam. Taking the postgraduate entrance exam is like fighting a war. 1 puff of energy, another decline, and 3 exhaustion. My anger has already dissipated. Now, I can't bring it up. Dad bought rural cooperative medical care. I remember at that time, everyone had over 100 friends. My parents bought them all after my persuasion. And at that time, my aunt even mocked and said they were spending money recklessly. But now, it comes in handy. Rural cooperative medical insurance requires paying for medical expenses first and then reimbursing them. I didn't have enough money on me at the time, so Zhou Xiang helped me out with over 10,000 yuan. During the Chinese New Year, the expenses were reimbursed, and neither parent spoke up. Under my inquiry, I hesitated and said, the Chinese New Year is coming soon, and money needs to be used everywhere. The reimbursement money. I told your father, at least I need to pay back the money. Zhou thought about. My mother sneered. He's your boyfriend, so it's appropriate to spend some money on your dad. I'm so angry that my mind is buzzing. You know it's just a boyfriend. 15,000, not 1,500. Mom, if I take this money, how can I look up in front of him in the future? I spoke harshly. If you don't give me this money, I won't give you any more money in my life. Mom finally took out the money. At night, the thin door panel couldn't stop her low sobs. You won't make any money in the future. I still have to serve you. Chucho is about to go to college, and my family doesn't have any income at all. Didn't I want to take some money and rest assured? I also know she's not easy, but she's young and capable. But we're old. Dad remained silent for a long time and vaguely said, I shouldn't have drunk and cut off Xiaoxia's future. I really deserve to die. This is the parents in reality. They have many flaws and many drawbacks. They raised you again and gave you a little love. It makes it impossible for you to love them deeply, but it also makes it impossible to cut them off completely. I have read so many books, but no instinct has taught me how to handle relationships with my parents. My roommates and classmates were very sorry to know about my experience, but I still have something to do. 1 is the graduation thesis. 2 is to take the college entrance examination after the Chinese New Year. And 3 is to find a job. I originally gave up my 8th year of college and focused on preparing for the postgraduate entrance examination. Now, it has to be picked up. Zhou wants to advise me. Otherwise, you just relax and relax. He is worried about my mental health. It's okay. I smiled and said, I can't spare any time. And didn't you like me because I worked hard? But now I feel sorry for you and hope you can relax a bit. But I'm so ordinary. If you don't work hard, you may slip down at any time and become lost in the crowd. I believe what he is saying at this moment is all sincere. Can he still think so in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years? After finishing my college entrance exam, I started looking for a job. Having a second degree and missing out on previous school admissions, it is extremely difficult to find a suitable job. Many students sign up for jobs with a salary of around 2,500, while 3,000 are extremely rare. After much thought, I contacted the previous tea shop manager. He took the initiative to ask me if he wanted to go back. You can offer me the position of tea art trainer with a basic salary of 3,200 yuan, plus sales commission. This tea factory is not small in scale, but there is still room for improvement. I have empty pockets now and can't be picky. This year, Zhou Xiangyi also graduated with a PhD. He signed a large factory with an annual salary of 50 plus. This is the power of knowledge. Knowledge can be effectively transformed into money. I graduated from college and my sister took the college entrance examination. She had taken my suggestion and chose a science major. That year, she had a total score of 664 for a 522 undergraduate program. When the score came out, my mother cried to tears. In the future, I will truly be able to stand tall and upright as a person. And see who still says that I cannot give birth to a son. Do their sons have any prospects with my daughter? Dad is also very excited. I must live well and enjoy my daughter's blessings in the future. In recent years, my second cousin has also got married. Once again, I emptied my aunt's fortune. Neither sister-in-law is a worry-free person. The front and back feet are pregnant again. Auntie served this one, but neglected that one. The days are simply deep and scorching. On the contrary, parents do not have such troubles. When registering for school, parents repeatedly expressed that they didn't want their sister to go too far. Later, Zhou Xiang took her around Nanjing University and finally applied for their ACE major. After the admission letter was issued, my parents held a banquet in the village, built several arches, and even invited performers to perform. I wish I could tell the world this great joy. My younger sister did better than me in the exam, so they should be happy. Mom explained, if we don't serve alcohol, we won't be able to take back the favors we sent out. When you get married to Xiaozhou, I will also serve you a drink. The gift money collected was enough to cover my sister's tuition fees, and my mother also gave her an additional 2,000 yuan in living expenses. Yin advised, when you arrive at school, you should still spend the money you should, and don't be looked down upon by your classmates. If you don't have enough money, send your mother a WeChat. I will still feel disappointed, but I have become accustomed to it, and I no longer look forward to their love, because there will always be someone in this world who will love me wholeheartedly. Zhou Xiang's senior brother is the teacher of his younger sister's current department. He took us to dinner with his senior brother and introduced his younger sister. As an undergraduate student, my younger sister was able to participate in some projects and also publish papers. This will definitely be of great benefit to her future development. Zhou Xiang has just joined the company and is as busy as a dog. I am actually much more free than before. I have watched a lot of TV dramas that I didn't follow before and books that I didn't have time to read. For over a month, I feel empty and bored. This day is my birthday. Zhou wanted to take me out to dinner and gave me a dandelion necklace. Xia, I think you're like a dandelion. I rubbed the necklace and said, yes, it's ordinary. No, it can survive in storms, droughts, fertile soil, or cliffs. It never dies. He took my hand. Xia. Why don't you try taking the postgraduate entrance exam again? You already have the foundation. It shouldn't be that difficult. Jiang Xian was admitted as a graduate student in her dream major. When she sent me a WeChat message wishing me a happy birthday, she also said, Xia, give it a try again. I believe you can do it. Being idle is also being idle. I tried again. My parents still don't quite agree. They only urge me to get married quickly and not miss a good man like Zhou Xiang. As soon as I return to my hometown, my aunt will say, marrying a good man is the most important thing. A man like Xiaozhou, You only met him when his ancestral tomb was smoking. We need to grab hold of him while he's blind. Countless days and nights that rely on coffee to survive. I look out the window at the bright street lights. This city is becoming increasingly prosperous. It seems to contain everything, but in fact, if someone like me doesn't give their all, I will never truly integrate into it. In December of that year, I walked into the exam room again. This time, I turned off my phone. No one can stop my progress. The day of the written test results is the 12th day of the first lunar month. Auntie arranged a blind date for Sanbao, but the other girl didn't look up to him at all. I used my phone to input my admission number and found out my grades. The total score is 439. The major I applied for recruited a total of 150 people, and I ranked third. I am sending WeChat to Zhou Xiang. He replied to me with a voice message. Xia xia, I knew you could. He sounds even happier than me. You are my pride. I contacted my supervisor over a year ago. I didn't take the last exam at that time and explained the reason to him. Goodbye. For the interview now. She casually asked a few questions and then said, this student contacted me more than a year ago, but due to family reasons, it was delayed. I didn't expect to see you again this year. The meaning in this statement is very obvious. She has a crush on me. Don't let anyone else grab it. The mentor was also someone Zhou Xiang had inquired about several times before, with strong academic abilities, multiple projects, and no pressure on students. As soon as the admission letter is issued, Zhou Xiang will take me back to meet his parents. There are some things that cannot be pondered deeply. Why did it happen after the postgraduate entrance examination? Zhou Jiajia is even richer than I expected. His family has opened several large supermarkets, and now his brother is in charge of the family business. However, Zhou Xiang also has shares and will receive dividends at the end of the year. His parents are quite polite to me, but I can tell they don't really like me. My parents urged us to get married, but Zhou Xiang's parents said, Zhang Xiaxia has just been admitted to graduate school, so there's no need to rush into getting married. My supervisor has many projects, and I was very busy during my graduate studies. My mentor loves drinking tea. After knowing that I am a senior tea artist, I am like a treasure trove. I am often asked to make tea for him, and my monthly allowance has also increased significantly. I became the president of the student union and published several papers with good weight. My mentor took me to various meetings and had dinner with the big shots during the banquet. She always says with a hint of flaunting, as a student, I don't just specialize in academics. She's also a senior tea artist. It's necessary to always perform a tea ceremony. At that time, the tea master was really a tea master and had nothing to do with green tea. The mentor is proud. If you go to the tea house to drink tea, this skill alone will be worth thousands of yuan. Today is my treat. Naturally, it attracted a wave of envy and praise. My mentor treats me like half a daughter and always praises me. I am such a good student. Cheap Xiao Zhou, that stinky kid. If you have any talent, you will be my daughter-in-law. Hi. Her son is only a freshman, thanks to her ability to speak out. Actually, this is the parents I want. Even though I am ordinary, in her eyes, I am also the most precious treasure in the world, and even the heavenly king and Laozi are not worthy of it. Perhaps God also pities me, so use a mentor to make up for my shortcomings. Once, while dining out with Zhou Xiang's parents, I happened to meet my mentor. She praised me fiercely and even secretly helped us by the order. From that day on, his parents' attitude towards me underwent a significant change. Entering the third year of postgraduate studies, the school enrollment begins. I'm also looking for a job. That day, the supervisor saw my resume and she was not happy. Why don't you ask me if you're looking for a job and want to mess around like a headless fly? She recommended me a leading domestic heavy industry enterprise. Of course, there is still an interview required. My position is senior business manager, mainly responsible for translating and receiving foreign clients, and assisting in finalizing cooperation matters. At that time, there were 10 participants in the final meeting. There are also 2 returnees. My 985 master's degree is really not worth mentioning. However, during the interviewer looked so familiar. He flipped through my resume and asked, "Did you work at Long Run Tea House before?" I remember. Previously, he would always take foreign clients to tea shops to taste tea. Generally, there are translations, but tea tasting involves many professional terms, and the translation is not familiar. So sometimes I help. That's a free and authentic foreign teacher. I can't wait to talk more. The interview atmosphere was very good throughout. Soon, I received the offer. Comprehensive annual salary of 30W. Compared to Zhou Xiang, I can't compare myself. But looking back at that time when I graduated from college, I encountered obstacles everywhere when I was looking for a job. It's really different now. After the work was finalized, Zhou Xiang's mother became anxious. "You are all quite old now. We need to hurry up with the matter of getting married and having children. You see, marriage is like this. Only when you have enough chips can you be valued and respected." My younger sister is in her 3rd year. I was originally going to take the postgraduate entrance exam, but Zhou Xiang and I have already helped her plan it. But suddenly she didn't want to take the exam. I repeatedly asked and found out that she had a boyfriend, who was 3 years older than her. I am a college graduate and currently working in sales. Her boyfriend is in a hurry to get married. My mind was completely blown up at the time. After meeting her boyfriend, I even felt that being smooth-tongued was unreliable. God gave you this clever brain. Have you used it all to grow a love brain? Are you working hard to get married as soon as you graduate from college? Why did he stop you from taking the postgraduate entrance exam? He was afraid that your education level would differ too much and he wouldn't be worthy of you. Cho, he's not the same person as you. We all had our heads up at the time. Cho was also angry. You would have an ordinary undergraduate degree, and your brother-in-law is a PhD. He doesn't dislike you either. Song is right, sister. You are too much in charge. I am not a 3-year-old child anymore. I can take responsibility for my own life. In that moment, sadness swept over me. I have been planning for her, hoping that she won't take any detours. Finally, it becomes too much management. Cho also realized that she had passed and apologized in a low voice. "I'm sorry, sister. He's really kind to me. Netizens all say, respect, blessings. But she is my only sister. Do I really want to watch her life slide down?" During that time, my relationship with my younger sister was strained, and it was all due to Zhou Wanxiang's mediation that we didn't get into trouble. My parents are also very anxious. They have no choice. As long as I persuade my sister more. This lasted until the end of October. One day, Cho suddenly called me and said, "Sister, I've split up with him." We had a fierce argument, and Cho was a bit shaken after all. That boyfriend then came up with a plan. I pierced the condom to make my sister unexpectedly pregnant. In this way, the marriage was firmly established. Fortunately, my sister's romantic brain is not serious. That night, she hugged me and cried loudly. The next morning, with a faint light, she asked, "Sister, can I still prepare for the exam in time?" Of course. After working for 2 years, coincidentally with a major transfer in the company, I made an exception and was promoted to a vice major. Under the urging of both parents, Zhou Xiang and I held a grand wedding. All the relatives in the family have come. My mother-in-law has given me enough face. I gave a change of speech fee of 100,000 yuan and praised me in front of all the guests. The aunt was so jealous that her eyes were almost falling out. Also asked the waiter if it's possible to pack a large lobster. Dad's legs, feet, and teeth have recovered well. When he handed me over to Zhou Xiang, his eyes turned red. "It's not easy for Xia to grow up all the way. You should treat her well." When my mother left, she held my hand and sobbed. "My parents used to be biased, so it's a last resort. We don't have that condition at home, so don't blame us. The love of parents can actually change. After children reach adulthood, They seem to prefer the promising child. My parents started sending me WeChat messages frequently, asking me to wear more clothes when it was cold and afraid of heat stroke when it was hot, make many pickled vegetables that I like, and fill my trunk every time I go home. On the contrary, I am not as attentive to my younger sister as before. My parents also send me WeChat messages complaining that I always don't contact them and rarely call home. Many children who are away will love home, because they grew up in the love of their grandparents and parents. Family always hold the thread on their bodies. But I'm not. I am always given up, always ranked last, and you have never given me strong and grand love. How can I be so demanding? I am attached to you all. My mother-in-law treats me well, but Joe wants to treat me particularly well. In this world, I have someone who loves me with all my heart. I have grown up and I no longer need my parents' love so much. I saw it through. We cannot sever our relationship and can only reconcile with our childhood self. They gave me life and a little love. Let me give them a little bit of love as well. I have always disliked debt. The old house collapsed after a rainstorm. Fortunately, the 140 square meter house I bought in my county town happened to be delivered. The location of that house is good. 500 meters away is the hospital, and across the road is the cultural square. There are 2 large supermarkets nearby. My parents said it was convenient to live in the countryside, and my heart was filled with joy. Everyone praises them for their blessings, giving birth to 2 daughters who are so smart and capable. The aunt also made up her mind to ask her parents to lend the house to her cousin for marriage. She has been honed by her grandson in recent years and has aged very quickly. She no longer has the energy she used to curse me with. Fortunately, I don't need to say much. My parents refused this time. Times have changed, and people's attitudes are gradually changing. Discovering that there are many sons is no longer a good thing worth showing off around. Having many sons means having to work hard for a lifetime. Actually, having a son or daughter is not the point. The key is to love them well. Give children enough love and teach them how to behave and do things. When children grow up, they will naturally give back love and filial piety. But only those who have truly experienced this truth will understand. How can we, born ordinary and lacking in love, not slip into the mud? I think, only cherish oneself. Only by constantly striving and never giving up. Only grit your teeth and make it through. Survive the storm, even if you can't see the rainbow. Looking back, we can also. I tried my best. I didn't disappoint every inch of my youth, he said with a smile.